Hello everyone. So today we'll be working with a repository called Alexis, and this is another project in our beginner open source contribution playlist. And Alexis is more of a fun project that was included in a competition called Hacktoberfest, if I'm pronouncing it right. And this is a festival that has been going on for quite some time. And I'll just show you the website over here. This is the About Us website of Hacktoberfest that happens every October. It's an annual event which is organized by an organization called DigitalOcean. And this project, Alexis project that we are going to look at today, was a part of this Hacktoberfest for quite some time. And it's a great repository, especially for beginner contributors to get their hands dirty with the entire workflow of contributing to open source project. So without further ado, what is this project about? It is a command line interface project which acts like your Jarvis that you might have seen in your Iron Man movies, and it has a few commands that you can get started with, and the list is quite comprehensive. And the installation instructions over here are also quite simple. So let's follow a 13-step guide to contribute to this repository. If you're not familiar with the 13-step contribution guide, you can always look at the card above, which links you to the video that I've created for a common workflow to contribute to open source projects. So we pull up our guide, and the first thing is finding the project. Fortunately for this video, we do have a project in mind. The next is read up the contribution guideline, which are basically two files if you remember, the readme.md and the contributing.md. So in the readme, this is a short description of what Alexis is. How do you get started? There's actually a YouTube video about it. You can clone the repository. How do you run this? It's simple Python 3 command. All the commands that you can use are in the allcommands.txt file. And the way to install this locally for your local installation is just one simple command, pip install -r requirements.txt. And this will just download all the requirements you need. So we went over the README. Now we go over the contributing.md. This again is quite concise. There are just a few bullet points. PRs are accepted, so they are looking for pull requests. Fork the repo, work on it, make a pull request. We'll review it and get in touch within the day. Don't forget to document what you have coded, make changes to using comments. We welcome all comments, big or small. Your PRs will count towards your Hacktoberfest. Okay, so once we are done with reading the contribution guidelines, we now have to look for relevant issue. And this repository just makes it very easy for you because it has an open issue, which is quite open in the very sense of the term, because it says add more commands. There is no specific command that you have to add. It depends on you. Whatever you want to add can be added. And if you scroll down in the comments, you'll see that there are many people who have actually contributed to it by opening pull requests, say like add new translator feature, add currency conversion feature, etc. So it's an open issue. You can add any feature that you feel is a good to have in this particular repository. Okay, so the next thing is forking and cloning the repository. So let's begin doing that. We go to the code tab. We create a fork of this repository. I already have a fork, so I can go to my existing fork. If you did not have one, you should click on the create a new fork button. If you have an existing fork, always remember you should sync up your branch because it could be out of date. Once you have forked the branch, the next thing is cloning it. So click on the arrow beside code, click on this copy icon, which copies the HTTPS URL. And we now go to our folder where we want to just set it up. So choose any folder of your choice and open your git bash. Now, if you do not have the git bash CLI installed, there will be a link in the description going over the steps how to get it installed. If you do have it installed, you can quickly just type the command git clone. So let me make this full screen and zoom in a bit. Git clone followed by the URL that we just copied. Once the cloning has completed, the next step is to create a new branch. So we do git checkout -b for creating a new branch. And I'll just call this thing add new feature. We don't have a particular feature in mind, but if you have a feature, you should make the description reflect that. Okay, my bad. I should have gone within the Alexis repository and then run this command. Okay, so we now have a new branch created. You can check for the different files that we have over here. And to start the installation procedure, remember there was a command in the README. But before we run this command, our next step is to create a new virtual environment. So to create a new virtual environment, open up your terminal. In my case, I'm using the Windows subsystem for Linux. Now let me increase the screen size and the font size so it's more legible for you. So we are near Alexis. We want to create a new virtual environment, and the command to do that is Python 3 -m venv, and the name is the name of your virtual environment. In my case, I'll just call it env. Now, once the virtual environment has been created, our next step is to activate it. So in Linux, you have the command source env bin activate. Note that the commands are different for Windows and Mac users, so be mindful of that. And once it's activated, you'll see the name of your environment popping up on the left side of your command. That means you're all good to go. And we go back to the repository to go for the installation instructions. In this repository, it's a very beginner-friendly repository, and you just have one command. So we copy that up and we run it. Make sure you don't have to add a $sign over there. Okay, so we have now completed the installation process. Make sure that you run this command where the requirements.txt is present. In our case, within the Alexis repository. I've made that mistake many times, so be careful about that. Now, once the installation process is done, so we created a new branch, set up the virtual environment, we now have to make changes to the code. And that is where we'll pull up our trustworthy VS Code. So let me pull up the VS Code and open the code repository. All right, so once we have opened this repository in VS Code, we need to understand that the most important file in this project is the alexis.py. This is like the main file that runs each and every command, and it is quite a big file because all the commands get added into this. Apart from alexis.py, it's also important to understand that there is another file, a txt file for storing all the different types of commands you have, which you do have to modify. So that file is called allcommands.txt, which is more like a documentation. So let's run Alexis before we make some changes to it. And to do so, let me first clear my screen and use the command python 3 alexis.py. If you have successfully completed all the installation procedures, you should see, good afternoon, I'm Alexis, your personal robot butler, type command. Hi Alexis, how are you? Hey, okay. Can you give me the system vitals? Okay, so CPU usage is 0.5, RAM is 10.4%, battery percentage 100%. Okay, so this is one of the commands that I've added to Alexis in a pull request that I created a while ago. So it was just a demo for that. In this video, we're not going to add any useful functionality. I'll leave it up to you. That's your creativity. But I'll show you how to add an additional command. So we go back to our VS Code, and let me just go to vitals. So the way this works, it looks for certain keywords in your command, and it's a very simple thing. It just looks for these keywords, and if the keywords have been identified, we process the inputs and create some specific kind of output. In my case, whenever the vitals was mentioned in the command, I used to use a system library to get the CPU percentage or the CPU usage percentage, my RAM used, and on my battery status, etc. You could add a different functionality to this. So for example, let me write elif YouTube in command. And always add a try and catch block so that you, or try and accept blocks so we don't face an error or something. So in this case, I'll just do a print. You don't really need a try except block for a print statement, but it's a good habit to just have it for each and every one of your commands. So for YouTube, let's just say opening YouTube in a browser. Actually, let me see if YouTube was present. So we have download YouTube videos, video stats. We have an open YouTube. Okay, we already have a YouTube, so let's make a very useless command. saying laugh, and hopefully there's nothing called laugh over here. And whenever user says laugh, we'll just do ha 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 and accept. Well, you'll never reach this block, but let's just say an error occurred while laughing. Now let us try to run this very silly modification that we did for our code. So let me type, hi Alexis, can you laugh? Perfect. So we do see that our additional functionality, in our case, users functionality, is working. Once you are done with adding your functionalities, we go with the next step in the contribution guide, which is to add, commit, and push our changes. So we are done with our virtual environment. We open our Git CLI again. Let me just clear some of my screen and let's look at the status. A typo over there. Git status. So we did modify alexis.py, but before we go ahead and add and commit to it, you also need to remember that whatever commands you're adding, it should go in the all commands.txt. Again, I won't be making any modifications because I'm not actually going to add this silly command, but you should always make sure that you add it over here. And if you do use any additional libraries that need support for running your commands, for example, in Alexis, in my previous pull request, I wanted the psutil library. So you always need to make sure that anything that you have in, say, the import statements over here needs to be added to your requirements.txt. So in the requirements of txt, you should see that I have added the psutil functionality. I'll also take you to my pull request that shows what all I've modified. But make sure there are three things that we want to do before making a pull request. Add our original functionality, add the documentation or description of what the functionality is in the all commands.txt, and third, if you're adding some additional requirements, you should also add them to the requirements.txt. Once we're done with all these, we go back to our Git CLI, we write git add, in our case, just alexis.py, we have git commit, added a laughing functionality. And the last thing is, let me clear my screen again. The last thing is to push it. So git push origin, the name of your new branch, which is add new feature. And there we go. We have just pushed it to our forked repository. So we go back to our version of Alexis, and you should see an option for comparing and creating a pull request. Once you click on that, it will take you to the pull request page. For the title, I would say just make sure you mention the kind of functionality you're adding. In the description, I would also ensure that you add a description for that functionality, and if possible, also add some screenshots just to make it more descriptive. To give you a better idea, I will take you to the pull request that I had created when I contributed to it. So let me bring that up. Okay, so I added a description on what all functionalities it does add. So it does add the system vitals, which is kind of inspired by the Jarvis scene in Iron Man, and it mentions three different things: CPU usage, RAM usage, and the battery percentage. And I also give some sample commands that you will need in order to invoke this functionality. After that, there might be some conversations, or in this case, as you can see, the contributor just merged this particular commit, so we are good to go and the PR was closed. And that is the end of your open source contribution journey for this particular project. And I hope this video added some value on how to get started. This especially is a very easy, beginner-friendly project. Hopefully this video helped you, and if it did, I would really love it if you could like and subscribe my videos so that I can keep on making such videos. Thank you and have a great day.